Hello again, welcome to another video with Anthony. The philosopher Montaigne counsels that our little lives are a little spark in between two black pools. So you've got this black pool here, that black pool, and we've got this little tiny spark in the middle, which is our life. And Montaigne says that we should live that life according to freedom, maybe hedonism. We should do what we want to do and according to our will, almost like Dionysus, and live in gay abandon like Bacchus, the Roman god of wine, or just with all that, and live life to the full, drink deeply from the cup. But in the anxiety state, it's not always possible to do that. Sometimes we are inhibited by our backgrounds. So if you look at going from Montaigne to the entrepreneur Richard Branson, if you look at Branson, one of his books is called Screw It, Let's Do It. Now that's all very well, so he's saying abandon everything, let's go for our dream, let's do it. But if you look at what his foundations are compared to most of us, it's very different. So if you look at Richard Branson's early life, you've got someone who came from quite some wealth anyway. So he came from a upper middle class background. His father was a QC, and he really had nothing to lose because he had a very secure base. So he could screw it and do it because he had nothing to lose. He could take risks, he could take gambles. The best maxim you can give to a child is everything is okay, don't worry, everything will be okay. And Richard Branson not only heard that, but he lived it. All around him were signs that everything would be okay. He had wealthy parents, he went to a very glamorous school for the well-heeled called Stowe, which is an independent school, who undoubtedly gave him the message that everything would be okay and that with application he could become a success. So all around him were the trappings of wealth and achievement and success. So when he writes a book called Screw It, Let's Do It, it's brilliant because he had what the psychologist Bowlby would call a secure base. When we've got a secure base, we have a subconscious feeling of a safety net. So we can fly knowing that if we fail, we fall onto the safety net which our parents usually, or our inheritances often, have provided. So he can screw it and do it knowing that he'll always have a soft landing. If I, or someone like me, screws it and does it, I end up in the gutter, I end up on the street. If I get a loan to launch a business for £130,000, nothing in Richard Branson's money, first I have to get the loan and pay usury or interest on it, and then if it fails, I end up in the gutter on the street, begging with a pot in my hand. I might not even have a pot. Unlike Richard Branson, who wouldn't even have to ask for the loan, he would have had to ask his parents for the loan. Just like Stelios from EasyJet. He came from a very wealthy Greek family of shipping magnates. So when Stelios writes a book called EasyJet, The Easy Way, and how easy it is to make money, it is if you've got a massive safety net like Stelios or Branson or Donald Trump, another one who came from great wealth, didn't have to do much, but then find themselves in the role of pontificating about how easy it is to become great. But they never say how easy it is to become great when you've got a wonderful safety net. So, going back to the psychologist John Bowlby, a secure base. Now, you would be very lucky if you've been brought up with a secure base, and if all you had to do was to go through life knowing that if you failed, everything would be okay because the pieces would be picked up. Most of us don't have that. We have an insecure base, or even a chaotic base, where we can't rely on anything, and where everything we do has got to be thought out very well. We've got to think, well, okay, if I do this and if it fails, that'll go wrong, or this will go wrong, and it's very difficult then to put things together. It's very difficult to take any risk, and that risk aversion in my opinion, is to do with anxiety. The more anxious we are, the more risk averse we are, because if we take a risk, it might go wrong. So if our early messages were be careful or it might go wrong, then we become anxious. So we're risk averse. What if it fails, we think? What if it goes wrong? What if I end up in the bankruptcy court? What if I end up in the gutter? What if I lose my shirt? That is the message for the anxious person, and that of course keeps our adrenal glands on edge. If you look at a book like a meta-analysis done by Professor Lord Layard, he wrote a book called A Good Childhood, which describes it builds on John Bowlby's work and Mary Main, and it describes a good childhood being the secure base again. And without that, there's no chance, there's no hope. It sets your adrenal glands to high alert all the time. What if something goes wrong? Now, most of the time, things don't go wrong, but subconsciously we think they will, because when we were young, we had the rent collector knocking on the door for rent, and our parents maybe not being able to make ends meet. That makes the child anxious, and it makes the child always on edge. What if something goes wrong? So when Montaigne says our little lives are a spark in between two black pools of nothingness, that's true. How can we use that spark? How can we drink deeply from the cup? How can we live, as Nietzsche said? How can we take the loan of life when we fear death so much? Because underneath every anxiety state is a fear of death. So if we are to drink deeply from the cup, we need to discard our anxiety. But how can we do that? If you watch a film, a great documentary like 7 Up, which is about a child at different stages of his life. So they filmed different children at age 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, etc. And what they found on that film was that no one really changes. The anxious child stays anxious, the rich child stays rich, the mad child stays a bit off the wall, and the mediocre child stays a bit mediocre. You know, if you watch those films, they're brilliant because it shows and exemplifies and corroborates the Jesuit saying, which is, give me a child till he's 7 and I'll show you the man or woman. So in that, there's a transactional analysis message that by the time you're 7, all your introjections, beliefs and drivers are inside you subconsciously. So if you look at Richard Branson, who can drink deeply from the cup, take risks and fly a beautiful trajectory even to the moon, he has no fear. He can screw it and do it because he has the secure base. But if you look at most people, they're fearful and anxious in case something goes wrong. So basically, if you buy a book, Screw It, Let's Do It, it would only ever do you any good if you came from a secure middle class background, because if you didn't, you can't screw it and do it, because you'd always be in a state of fear. So if you give someone a child until he's 7, it's already in there, and that's very, very difficult to turn around. What you're looking at is changing your schemas or core beliefs, and you can only do that through quite intensive psychotherapy. So what's the message in all this? We have our 70 years and 10. We live our life. We maybe have 100 years to live, but usually it's about 80, maybe 90. So we've got this little spark of life in between the two black pools. So what do we do? How do we live it? That's the question that we all have to address, and the question we have to answer, because time will run out and then there'll be nothing. It will be sans feeling, sans life, sans everything. It will be nothingness, and we'll go into that next black pool, and we won't have lived like Richard Branson, because we don't have the safety net and we don't have a deep well of security to draw upon. It's something to think about. So thanks for watching again, and until next time, see you then. Thank you.